Hello, my name is Lauren Tam, and I'm an education consultant with Usborne Books and More. And I wanted to share with you some of the reasons that reading is super beneficial and needs to happen a lot more in our families. Um, it kind of started me, the reason I started thinking about this was I started rereading this book, The Read Aloud Handbook by Jim Trelease. And this is a book that everybody must have. I'm going to be I think I'm going to start getting this book to hostesses that have a certain amount of sales in a party because it's one of those books that I feel everybody should have and everybody could benefit from. At least anybody who has children in their lives. And this book is talking about getting kids to love to read. Not how to read, but getting them to love to read. And it starts off by talking about this family that there came from a really small town with around 3,500 people population, and in 2002, their child got a perfect score on the ACT, which is very hard to do. And a lot of people came up asking them, well, which ACT prep course did you use? Did you use Princeton? Did you use Kaplan, and they said they didn't use any, which is true, and it's not true, because they did use a program. They started this program when their children were babies, and it's reading. They spend half an hour a day, every day, reading to their kids aloud, and that goes past when the kids were infants, could read to themselves. Excuse me, sorry. So, it got me thinking, what would it mean for me to spend half an hour a day to read to my kids? And I do. We actually read a lot to our kids. I would hope so. I sell children's books. But what would it mean to families to read half an hour a day every day to their kids? And just think about that. Think about putting your technology away for a little bit. I love technology, and I'm very guilty of spending way too much time on Facebook, on YouTube, on my iPad, on my computer. And it really creates a bond. For starters, yes, you're building their vocabulary, you're giving them the ability to communicate better. I mean, there's limitless educational reasons why reading is so great. But just the family bonding. And then I get questioned a lot that, well, don't you think that your business is going to go downhill because, of these e-readers and the Nooks and all of these things, all of this technology? And I said, there's a couple things that I feel about that. And one, I am waiting to see what happens to eyesight from so much screen time that we and our children have. And that's just one. That's just a physical aspect of it. And the second thing is there is nothing like holding a book and turning pages. And matter of fact, one of my favorite childhood memories, and it is the only memory that I have of my great uncle George, is I was sitting on his lap and he was reading to me the Monster book. I don't own the book anymore, but it was Sesame Street, and it was one of the golden books with the gold spines, and it was really a lot about Oscar the Grouch. And my great uncle must have been in his, it wasn't my great uncle, it was my great great uncle, in his 90s, late 80s, early 90s, and I was 3. And this is the memory that I have, sitting on his lap, turning the pages, reading the Monster book with him. And there's a lot of memories that I have of family where I was read to, chapter books and such, and I definitely am I love reading. I have a lot of books that I had as a child that my kids are reading now. But it creates a bond. Reading with your kids doesn't just help them educationally. It builds bonds with your family. Um, in an age where there's so much craziness and there's so many different things that everybody can be doing every second of every day, especially with the internet, just to sit down and have that time. Something else that is mentioned, and I believe it's mentioned in this book. If it is, I haven't gotten that far, but I want to say that it is read to the oldest child. So, for example, I have 4 kids. My youngest is 3, and my oldest is going to be 13 next month. And as a family, when my husband isn't working, he works some crazy hours. So when my husband isn't working and we're all together as a family, we have been reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Obviously, my 3-year-old doesn't understand. And there are words that I don't understand in the book. So, it's pulling up dictionary.com. See? Internet's great. Pulling up dictionary.com, or if you want to get an actual dictionary, that's fine too. And looking up the words that we don't know. And I have blocks, or we use magnetiles that my little ones will play with while we're reading this book to the older ones. Well, we're reading to all of them, but for a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old to sit still for a book like this would be is a little bit of a challenge. So we give them something to do, and it amazes me because the kids will have a conversation at the lunch table the next day or at the dinner table, and they'll be talking about what we read last night, and what comes out of my 5-year-old and what she retains and what she knows is just phenomenal. And it just baffles me what our kids can get out of that. So I feel like I feel that reading is really important, and one of the reasons would be, for educational purposes, but the other really is that bonding with family and leaving behind a legacy. How do you want to be remembered? Do you want to be remembered as that person that's always on the computer and the iPod and too busy to spend time with your kids? Or do you want to be that person that your kid remembers snuggling up against and waiting for you to say, okay, turn the page, or why don't you give me your finger and we can read it together. You can follow along with me. That's one thing that we do with my little ones. So I just, not something I typically do, but got inspired this weekend, this past weekend, to share some of my thoughts on the true benefits of reading aloud to children. Just phenomenal. So if you need any suggestions for great books, I can recommend ones that are others that aren't just the ones that I sell. I love talking books, and by no means do my bookshelves only consist of Usborne books and more. So Usborne and Kane Miller books. So some really great books I can recommend if you care. All you have to do is ask. In any case, you guys have a great day, and thanks for listening to my 2 cents.